Even though it's painful, the comfort and familiarity of repetition compulsion based in childhood survival keeps us trapped inside an illusion that that's all there is for us. The fear shuts us off from the abundance of the unknown. Childhood survival, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. It's not a cookie cutter one size fits all for everyone. Everyone is raised differently. But when you are raised in survival, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, essentially the authenticity of who you are, you learn is unacceptable. So you push that stuff out. And then with that, you learn to attract and be attracted to people and things that reinforce the original wound or wounds, the original damage, all of the stuff that happened in childhood, in survival, in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. So imagine childhood is survival based, fight, flight, freeze, fawn. That's what you learn. You learn that you cannot be yourself because it's just not acceptable. And what it is that you crave is love, acceptance, validation, approval, all of that stuff. You learn that all that stuff is out there and you've got to do a bunch of things and be somebody that is not authentic to you in order to receive all that stuff, which is not what you would learn in a healthy childhood. No childhood is perfect, of course. But really the theme of this video is to explore the reality that you may have been raised in a survival-based childhood with fight, flight, freeze, fawn, all of these defense mechanisms, and maybe even other ones as well. And because of that, fear actually became a very important element. And when I say important, what I'm referring to is that it basically became the foundation for how you live your life. You had to be afraid because as you were was not accepted. It was not acceptable. So you had to essentially become somebody else to fit into the fucked up dynamic of the family system from which you came. But the overall theme here is that, yes, you may have been raised in survival. You may have lived decades in survival because repetition compulsion is a real thing. The act of keeping the comfortable and familiar emotional dynamics, painful dynamics. Survival is painful. Being raised in a way that teaches you that anything about you that is authentic is to be pushed out, shadow. Then you basically create this version of you to survive. To survive a fucked up and dysfunctional family system. That's, from what I understand, why it's called survival. And now, the fear itself, the fear of, oh, well, I don't like my relationships because they were formed in survival. And it's not actually the authentic me because the way that I want to be is different from the way that these other people are trying to control the way that I am. And because of that, I don't like my relationships. The fear has you believing that that's all that there is for you. Oh, you better not let go of that relationship because, and it completely negates the reality that we live in a world of 8+ billion people. It's a lot of people. But no, you fixate on specific relationships. Not just because you believe in this idea of fear and lack and scarcity, but also because you have learned it's been hardwired into you. Survival fucks people up. And when I say survival, what I'm referring to is survival-based childhoods of fight, flight, freeze, fawn, where you basically have to create an identity to survive the fucked up dysfunctionality of the fucked up childhood, of boundary violations, of control, of all of these different things that marred and scathed you in such a specific way that brought you to be comfortable and familiar with the painful emotional dynamic of that survival-based childhood. And then the belief is, oh, well, all right, I'm just going to choose fear because maybe there isn't anything else out there for me. And so let me also explore something that's very important here. You learned to be a person in survival. You probably disregarded a bunch of authenticity within you. Okay. Let's focus on the pain here, because when I say pain, of course, I'm referring to emotional pain. The pain, I mean, you ask anybody, and they're probably like, yeah, no, I don't want to be in pain. Emotional pain, I don't like emotional pain. I mean, yeah, it is just pain, and if you learn how to deal with it in a healthy way, wonderful. And that healthy way would be to not avoid it. But we're going to focus on the pain here. Because when you are raised in survival, you basically develop a masochistic framework for the self. You learn a belief that you deserve to be hurt. And so you choose reinforcements that would reinforce. I guess what I could say is you choose objects, meaning people, and media that would reinforce that belief that, oh, I deserve to be hurt. I am masochistic. My relationships were very painful. There were boundary violations like crazy. I was not allowed to be myself. And so you just continue to choose reinforcements based on the original damage. If you believe that you deserve to be hurt, which is basically the fundamental idea of masochism, you deserve to have your boundaries violated, you deserve to regularly and consistently be in emotional pain, and you actually are attracted to people that reinforce that. How wild is that? You have a belief that you deserve to be in emotional pain, and with that, you attract and are attracted to people that reinforce that. I mean, that's the way that it is. Of course it would be. Because if you learn boundary violations, which are painful, boundary violations are painful, enmeshment is painful. If you learn that you deserve to be hurt, you're going to attract based on that. And so this whole idea of the choosing of fear because you don't see the bigger picture, maybe because, and I'm not suggesting anything, maybe you were gaslighted. Maybe you were led to believe that things are a different way than they actually are. Meaning maybe you were led to believe that the world is actually scarce in terms of good people. It's not good or bad people. It's just people. Some people are healthy, healthier. Some people are unhealthy, unhealthier. But you've been led to believe that there's not a lot of it out there, whether it's healthy people, healthy situations, things that are actually healthy for you, things that would actually show you that you have deserved better than what it is you've been given. This belief, choosing fear, to believe in lack. Oh, you shouldn't go into the unknown. Oh, you shouldn't do things differently. Oh, that's territory that I would not enter. Why? Fear. You could instead get curious about the unknown and also become aware that you're actually projecting fear into the unknown. The unknown is the unknown. I mean, that in and of itself is just a label. Instead of choosing to excessively self-soothe through whatever means you would, getting more familiar and comfortable with dealing with emotional pain in a healthy way so that you're not actually avoiding it, that's it. It's just pain. You've been choosing this your entire life, based in fear, based in lack. But what about this? 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 All these other options. When you are raised in fear, I'll try to illustrate this in a way that I think will make sense. When you are raised in fear and you're already screwed up with childhood survival, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, what happens to your perception of self, reality, the world, other, is it's like this. It's essentially like a pinhole. Like, imagine looking out at the world, but only through a pinhole. What are you going to see? You're literally going to be like, oh wow, I can't see a whole lot. And then the fear further reinforces the belief that you also shouldn't try to see more. It's just full circle. It's wild. Instead of choosing to fear the unknown, you could choose to get curious about it. Oh, what would it be like for me to deal with my painful emotions in a healthy way? Oh, what would it be like for me to stop choosing media that reinforces that I deserve to be in emotional pain regularly? What would it be like for you to realize that your survival-based childhood, with all the fight, flight, freeze, fawn, conditioned you into being somebody that is just in fight, flight, freeze, fawn? What would it be like for you to actually realize that you don't have to live in survival? That you've just been choosing people and things that reinforce the belief of necessity for survival. In healthy relationships, people are not in survival. People are not in fight, flight, freeze, fawn. They are not fighting back and getting defensive because they're not being attacked, because the people have healthy boundaries. They're not going into flight. They're not running away from pain and avoiding their problems because they have healthy means of dealing with their problems, dealing with their emotional pain. They're not shutting down because they find it difficult for them to express themselves. No, they're vocal. Or if the reason that they're shutting down is because they're surrounding themselves by people or with people that are unhealthy, they're getting those people out of their life because those people are unhealthy. And what's the point of what's the point of being a healthy person if you're just going to continue to choose unhealthy people? You wouldn't. It wouldn't work that way. When you become emotionally healthier and you realize that you do not deserve to be in emotional pain regularly because you're getting out of your survival-based childhood, you look at yourself and you look at others and you're like, hey, I'll pass on that. Just like that. Imagine feeling like you don't have to fawn or people please. Imagine feeling that way. Imagine feeling like because you're in a healthy relationship, at least one of them, you actually realize, oh, wait a second, it's not my responsibility to please others and abandon myself in the process. Imagine getting curious. Imagine going from this to expanded and opened up and just everything. Fear fucks people up. You can get curious about yourself. You can get curious about life outside of survival-based dynamics. And when I say survival, I'm specifically referring to is childhood, where you learned fight, flight, freeze, fawn, because you were raised in a system that lacked healthy boundaries, lacked individuation, and lacked differentiation. So you got caught up in a dynamic that is exceedingly dysfunctional and unhealthy. You didn't get to become your own person that you feel confident as and safe within. You actually learned to seek safety in other people that are actually not safe or healthy. Maybe you have been choosing fear your entire life. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just not healthy, because it's the difference between this and this. When you project fear out onto the world, you're essentially like violating the world with your inaccurate perception. It's not good or bad or right or wrong. It's just, one, not healthy, and why not choose curiosity? Oh, wait a second, I don't have to be this way? Oh, wait a second, I can be this way that I've wanted to be my entire life, but I pushed out in childhood? Yes, you're free. You are free.